How Maximus returns in Gladiator 2 is so much better than Ridley Scott's original plan for bringing back Russell Crowe's hero. Gladiator 2 is the direct sequel to Ridley Scott's historical epic Gladiator, which followed Russell Crowe's protagonist Maximus as he vowed revenge against the Roman Empire for the unjust murder of his family. The Gladiator sequel maintains several of the same themes, including vengeance, legacy, and democracy, but this story follows Maximus' son Lucius instead. However, that wasn't always the plan. The original concept for Gladiator 2 was very different, but was ultimately replaced by a story that Scott considered more fitting. Prior to Gladiator 2's release, there had been much talk about whether Russell Crowe would join Gladiator 2's cast as Maximus Decimus Meridius. The idea of continuing this franchise without Gladiator's original protagonist seemed impossible at first, but Ridley Scott's vision for the sequel's story ultimately fell into place. Although some may be disappointed that the Academy Award winner didn't return for the sequel, there's a reason that Russell Crowe isn't in Gladiator 2, and it fixes many of the problems that would have arisen from the actor's needless return. Ridley Scott's original plan for Russell Crowe's return as Maximus in Gladiator 2 explained. The original plan for Gladiator 2 did indeed envision Russell Crowe returning as his iconic character Maximus, but it was far beyond the reach of any viewer's imagination. The prospective script was reportedly written by musician Nick Cave and would have brought Maximus back from the dead and sent him traveling through time and visiting several different historical eras. Ridley Scott mentioned the idea on the Real Blend podcast, explaining that Nick Cave wrote the script, but I had the idea. The director continued, detailing his plan for Scene 1 of the prospective sequel. What I wanted to do is start the film in Styx, on the edge of the ocean, and you see him, this warrior, wandering in armor. Then it's Maximus wandering, looking for where he's going to go next. The decision to bring Maximus back from the dead would have undoubtedly been very controversial, and the inclusion of time travel in the story would have marked an enormous tonal shift from the original, more grounded story. How Maximus returns through Lucius in Gladiator 2 and saves his life. There are several references to Maximus' character in Gladiator 2, but the fabled warrior doesn't actually return in the sequel. He remains dead, completely eschewing Ridley Scott's original idea to bring him back from the afterlife. However, Gladiator 2 is still very closely connected to the original, and Russell Crowe's character plays an enormous role despite his absence. Maximus essentially returns in the sequel through his son Lucius, who's dragged back to Rome after being captured by the Roman forces in Africa. Lucius wears his father's armor in the fight against Macrinus. There's also a metaphorical return of Maximus in the final moments of Gladiator 2, as Lucius wears his father's armor in the fight against Macrinus and essentially channels his spirit to protect him. Lucius is fighting for a fairer, more democratic future for Rome, which is exactly what Maximus died to protect, and his decision to wear his father's armor in these final moments ensures that some part of Maximus is there with him. Why Gladiator 2 made the right choice by not directly bringing back Maximus. In the end, Ridley Scott found the perfect way of paying homage to the original Gladiator and honoring Maximus' character without needlessly bringing him back for nostalgia's sake. The decision to focus on Lucius instead of Maximus was an intelligent one. Reversing the character's death at the end of Gladiator would have undone the conclusion of the original film's emotional impact, which is a hugely important moment that represents the importance of fighting for what you believe in. Although Nick Cave's original script for Gladiator 2 sounds fascinating, it's hard to imagine that such a wild idea could have paid off in reality. It would have been a complete switch-up from the original story, ditching the grounded storytelling that made Gladiator such a classic in exchange for an ambitious, supernatural adventure through time and space. Lucia's story is much more engaging and interesting than anything that could have been stirred up by Maximus' return, and it ensures that the sequel remains in the same genre and general style as the original.